Sarah, my dear, beloved, I love you so much, friend. I am bringing you back on this podcast, and this is not a regular Running for Real podcast. This is called something else. Do you want to share with the audience what this is called?
Yeah, these are our Running for Real-Isodes. The name was actually a collaboration because you were like, I want it to be something for real. And I was like, how about a For Real-Isode? They're going to be fun. They're going to be short. They are going to be just you eavesdropping on two best friends, having a conversation and talking over a silly question. Just something sort of fun and light to bring brevity between some of Tina's more serious guests.
I know people will be like, who is this person? Like, she's always talking about like serious things and telling me to like call my senator. And now you're going to make me laugh. And I want to encourage the listeners, like Sarah, when she shares stories, and if you've listened to Sarah's previous episodes, you know this, I just find myself laughing uncontrollably with Sarah's stories. And you are honestly one of the best storytellers I have ever come across. So I'm excited to dive into that. But today, for this first one, just as it has been, a few years since you have been on the podcast, because you've been a little bit busy for a few different reasons. So can you just give the listeners a little bit of an update of why you haven't been back on? Because I always love to talk to you. You and I have remained close throughout this time. But what have you been up to?
Yeah, well, last time we talked, we were both pregnant. You were.
Well, I just had Chloe when this was released.
Oh, right.
You took over, didn't you? Remember?
Yeah, for a few episodes.
Oh no, yeah, you did. That was that time. It was Chloe.
Yeah. So I was pregnant. You had just had a baby. You had just had your second. I was pregnant with my first. That was June of 2020. And the funny thing is, Tina, it just occurred to me, I have been either pregnant or breastfeeding since January of 2020. So that is why I have not been sort of a face on the running scene in a couple of years. That and, a number of other life things that have happened. Tina knows this. Now I've been able to share online, but I've actually been sort of doing something completely outside the running realm, which is actually writing novels. And I just had a novel bought by Simon & Schuster. So that is actually going to be my full-time job. I'm still running, definitely not as much or as quickly as I used to, but I still love the sport, and I'm very excited about these For Real-Isodes. We just think of them as little like palate cleansers between people like Malcolm Gladwell and Kara Goucher. So they're just some little treats to keep you guys going between main courses here. So my life has been a little bit different with two kids now. But yeah, running is one of those things that even though I've been doing it like 19 years now, this is the first time in my life it hasn't been my main focus. It hasn't really been my big dream, but it's definitely still there for me. It's still therapy, which, I think you'd agree with that right now in your life.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yeah. And we were just talking before we started recording about how, for you and I, we both can look back on things that we've done in the past and be like, how was that even physically possible? But this is the period of life that we're in. It doesn't mean in the future, it can't be again. But running just plays a different role for us at this stage with young children, as many with young children can attest.
Yeah, it does. It's also one of those careers that, God willing, most people who are athletic will long outlive their best days athletically. So you sort of see your best days come and go. And I think when you're like 14 or 15 and you win a state title or something like that, you have all these like really big dreams about standing on an Olympic podium someday. And you should have big dreams when you sort of don't know where your potential lies. But I think for most of us, we hit age 28, 29, 30, and we sort of realize like, I don't think standing on an Olympic podium is sort of within my wheelhouse. I don't know about you, Tina, like what do you miss the most about like professional running, like running as a career?
This is why this is going to be good, because you always love flipping the tables. So now you're going to co-host with me.
Well, I just want to know, like, because I know we, even the two of us, like we are so.
Yeah.
This is why
Absolutely.
I think For Real-Isodes will work, is because we're really different. So I think we probably don't even miss the same things about this career.
I think mine was traveling to new places and getting to like explore a new place through my sport, and just the elite world gave more opportunities to do that. I think that would probably be it. I don't know. That, and maybe just that feeling of like finishing a progression run, like 20 miles and being like unable to believe how I ran that long, that hard, that long, and my body was still functioning.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think honestly, that's the part I miss. It's almost that feeling of like, if you just finished one of those runs, which for me, it's like intervals on the track always gave me that feeling of like doing like 25 by 400, like really freaking hard. And then the next day you're like walking through Walmart, like so sore and stiff, but you're like, you feel like you almost have this superpower that nobody knows about. And I think so when I used to run professionally for Zap Fitness, Zap, every summer they held running camps for adults, like people who were all ages, like couch to 5K kind of people even. And one of them was a journalist, and she wrote an article about her experience. And she said, she was talking about how all the campers, who were aged like 40 to 60 roughly, were down at the lake stretching and getting ready for their run. And then the group of Zap professional runners ran by. She's like, it was like seeing the mortals and the gods. And I feel like both of us, we've crossed that bridge from gods to the mortals. It's not fun to go the other way.
Well, I think one thing that you'll definitely, and I'm going to have us wrap in a minute so we can get on with we can share our For Real-Isodes. But one thing you'll definitely understand is that the whole running is relative thing is quite difficult. Like, while what you're saying is true, it's also not true, because for you and I, we've got all those years of training that we could probably not run for 3 months and still run under 20 minutes for a 5K. Mm-hmm. But for the average runner, doing that on the best of best days is like unimaginable. But for the listeners, put yourself in our shoes of losing, that much time is very surreal. And even though it may not seem that different, like in terms of we're still technically elite runners, there's a massive difference between being there and being where we were.
Yeah, there really is. It's like what we were talking about before we started recording about the Instagram video you posted today of like a run that, again, 99% of runners could only dream of doing, but it's still like a minute and a half slower than what was your marathon pace.
8 miles. Yeah.
So a run like that nowadays, it's like, for instance, like, and I've been working a little more on speed because that's the only thing I have time for right now is like 60 miles a week. So I actually broke a 5-minute mile for the first time in like 5 years.
Oh, amazing.
It was so awesome. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm now back to where I was at the end of high school. Like, so
I feel that.
Yeah, it is all relative for sure. But in the grand scheme of things, we're still young and fast. Okay, you still.
Well, thank you. I needed that validation. All right, we are going to wrap here. Anything else you want to share with people before we start digging in?
No, other than just that they're really going to enjoy the questions that we ask each other.
You did an impressive list. So I said to Sarah about this, and then the next day she literally typed up, I mean, like 60 questions, 100 questions. Like, you just went for it. So I love it. All right. So listeners, the first episode you're going to hear today, it'll be on the feed. So go check it out right now. Next episode. Thank you, Sarah.